Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Watson Michael from Ceylon Institute of English and Leadership. And we're glad to have Dr. Gary DePaul back with us. So Dr. Gary DePaul, he's the Executive Leadership Development Consultant at Gary DePaul Leadership. Also, he's a Distinguished Principal Research Fellow at the Conference Board. Furthermore, he's the Adjunct Professor, the Department of Educational Leadership at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So Gary, welcome back.
Hey, I'm glad to be back. Thank you for having me again.
It's an absolute honor. So you're the first guest for 2023 on our show.
So. I am honored, and I think I've been on your show more than other guests have. I think I'm breaking a record.
Yeah, I think you're ranked probably number 3.
Number right. 3. There you go.
Okay. So the race is on. Okay. Right. So, Gary, you have authored a book called 9 Practices of 21st Century Leadership, a guide for inspiring creativity, innovation, and engagement. Why did you name the book like that?
Yeah, if you went to Amazon, and you looked up leadership books, and especially the older ones, the newer ones are better than the older ones, but the older ones, you would look at chapters and they would have a chapter on courage. It would all be on qualities of leadership, but unfortunately they didn't really explain how do you lead. And what I wanted to do with this book in particular was talk about practices, what you can actually do, the behaviors to lead successfully. And I identified 9 of them from 14 books. Right. I did an analysis of 14 books published in the 21st century, with the exception of one, which was Freeberg and Freeberg, a book called Nuts that was in 1998. But all the other books were in the 21st century, and I identified principles, I identified traditional assumptions that could get you in a lot of trouble, and then the 9 practices. And that's what the book is. So if you read the 9 practices, you'll have a better idea what it means, what you can do to practice leadership. And with each practice, I give 3 sort of like case studies, 3 real examples for how that practice was applied. And by the way, the first example was by an individual contributor. The second one was someone in management, and the third one is an executive. So it doesn't matter what your role is, you can practice leadership.
100%. So it's 3 different factors. Pretty amazing.
Yeah. And the subtitle, A Guide to Inspiring Creativity, Innovation, and Engagement, that's all about what happens when you practice leadership effectively. You have those things, whether it's customer engagement or employee engagement, but the creativity and innovation is something that companies strive for, but it's like a distant goal. They can't innovate as well as they wish they could, but with effective leadership, not meaning the top of the organization, people who effectively practice leadership, you can generate a lot of innovation.
Definitely. So what is the difference between the first edition and the second edition of this book?
Yeah, besides the cover, the white, the first one is white.
The
second one is blue, like this. That's one small difference, but I went through, improved the grammar, expanded some of the content, but more importantly, I added some concepts that I did not have in the first edition. Some of them you're very familiar with: psychological safety, growth mindset, fixed mindset, added a lot about feedback and listening on those chapters.
Yes.
And I added a on how to develop leadership. I added a whole section about James Hunter and Marshall
Okay.
Goldsmith's
Okay.
approach to developing yourself in leadership, and the 4 steps that you would do to do that effectively. And
Yes.
I found it to be a very powerful way of thinking about leadership.
Yeah.
Um, so it's all that, and I do have one suggestion
Okay.
for viewers. Go to Amazon,
Yeah.
find 9 practices.
Mm-hmm.
Don't necessarily buy it, but which it would be good.
Yeah.
But click on the what's inside. And
Okay.
if you look at the what's inside, you'll be able to read the new forward by David Marquet. It's L David, it looks like Marquette, but he pronounces it Marquet. And he wrote this powerful forward
Yeah.
talking about how some of the challenges of leadership, and the way the whole resignation
Mm-hmm.
concept, and he does it in a way that's very powerful. And I recommend reading his forward. And you don't have to buy the book to read the forward.
Yeah.
It's there in the what's inside. But yeah, that the new forward, I've been blessed by having David Marquet write it.
Yes.
He doesn't he's written maybe a couple of forwards, so I'm
Okay.
fortunate to get him to do it, and he did a beautiful job.
Wow. Sounds pretty amazing, and especially when you have covered about the feedback and listening, which is very important. So
Yeah.
yeah, which most of the people, they don't like feedback, but
They don't. They don't. It's usually it's very a lot of times it's poorly delivered. And if you're new to management and you
yeah,
haven't done this before,
yeah,
there's techniques that you just guess at. You try to figure it out by trial and error, and that's not the best way to think about feedback. There's a lot more that you can learn
yes,
about how to give feedback. That's well worth spending time developing and not trying to guess.
absolutely, yes. So looking back at this book, is there any like an interesting part or an interesting chapter which you would like to elaborate?
Yeah. There's let's stick with the whole feedback concept. There's a chapter um called Facing the Unknown Like Lions.
Okay.
I
Face,
use these similes.
I'm sorry.
um
Facing the.
Facing the unknown
Okay.
like lions.
All right. Okay. Interesting.
And it's all about listening and communication and feedback. And in that chapter, I share probably one of the best concepts I've learned in the last 10 years, called feed forward.
Right.
Feedback is backwards looking.
Mm.
And it's not it doesn't it's not always that positive.
Yeah.
But feed forward is forward looking. And it's a whole different concept.
Yeah.
And let me go through the steps. It's pretty simple if you want to have feed forward to happen. So you and I, if we were going to do it, you and I would meet.
Yeah.
And what I would say to you, Watson, is
Yeah.
I'm trying to develop my how I run my meetings
Yes.
for my teams. I want to do a better job of doing it. What are 2 things that you recommend that I do to improve how I run teams, how I run my team meetings?
Yes.
And here are the rules.
Okay.
You cannot talk about my past. You know, say like if we were in the same company, you can't say, well, you need to stop doing this or what, you know, that's off the table. It's against the rules. You come up with two ideas on how it could improve meetings, and you tell me. Now, the rules for me is I cannot say things like, oh, that's a good idea, or that's a bad idea, or I can't say anything. My job, my one responsibility is to listen to you.
Yeah.
And then once you've shared, I will add one caveat, and Marshall Goldsmith doesn't do this, but I do. If you don't understand the recommendations, the two ideas, I might inquire and ask you to expand on something, help me understand a little bit better what you mean by, you know, whatever. I think that for me, that's okay. I think that would be acceptable. But otherwise, I can't say anything. It's all about listening.
Yes.
Then you're done talking. There's only one thing that I can do next.
Yes.
And that is 2 words. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I might say, well, what's something you would want to work on? You might say listening or you know, writing reviews or improve your writing or something like that. And then I would give you 2 suggestions, and then you might inquire and try to pull from me more understanding from of what I was trying to express. And then you would say, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Right.
If you run a workshop, if you ever do a keynote, it's really cool sharing the feed forward and then having people break up into groups of 2 and practice it. What you'll get afterwards, you'll ask them, was that painful?
Yeah.
No, actually it was enjoyable. It was fun. It was really great. People love this feed forward concept because it's not about you and what you're currently doing or what you've done in the past. It's about learning from another person, and it can be a very powerful thing.
Yes, very true.
That is a concept from the book. It's not, you don't have to get it from my book. You can go straight to Marshall Goldsmith. He has a website where he publishes all his writing, all his articles, and you can download them for free.
Wow.
And he has, and it's a little hard to find, but if you can find it, you can download his article called Feed Forward, and it talks about it in detail. He writes about it in his books. I believe it's in his book Triggers.
Yeah.
But I share it as well, and there's like 100 quotations in my book, and
wow.
Stuff from authors, from the 14 authors, and then some. And I include stuff from Marshall Goldsmith as well, and the feed forward concept is in that one particular practice. You know, face the unknown like lions.
Sounds pretty interesting. So you read 14 books by 14 different authors, and one of them was Friedberg. The books.
Yeah, Friedberg and Friedberg, Nuts.
Nuts, right? Which was in 1998, or right?
Yeah.
So you combined all those, and you made a phenomenal book, Leadership, the 9 Practices for the 21st Century. So, which is something great, Gary. So we don't find many people doing things like that. So
if you read 14 books and you read one after the other, you would learn something from that. 100%. What I did though is I took it a step forwards and I did analysis. I used some qualitative techniques to look for commonalities among the books and pull concepts from it. So it was a lot more intensive than if you had just read the 14 books. So that's where the research comes in, and where the synthesis of those concepts and what those incredible leadership authors are trying to do, and trying to communicate in their books. So yeah, it's I'll save you some time, and you can read my book instead of the other 14, or you can go more in depth with the 14 books and pick and choose which ones you're interested in.
Yeah, so for the people watching or listening, if you guys like want to read something, not very fast, but want to read something where you can gain immense knowledge, and something like Gary has done, what he has done is he has read 14 books. He has combined all the knowledge, he has advanced it a bit, and he has made it into one book. So you can gain some phenomenal knowledge by reading that book, because we need to read to enhance our skills. All right, let's say you're grumbling and you don't have time, but you can get the audio version as well.
Oh, no audio version for this one.
Okay.
But there's pull quotations, and like I said, there's about 100 of them that you can pick and choose what you want to read.
Yeah.
Just at the beginning of chapters, just reading the quotations from these authors is can be very powerful. Just learning that in and of itself.
Yeah.
And there is a executive coach that uses the book and they actually go through the book at the C-suite once a month. They would do 2 or 3 chapters and talk about it and do exercises around it. And they do an assessment that's part of the book, about how they behave and how they practice leadership.
Yes.
And some colleges use it as well.
Wow. So yeah, there you go. So that's pretty amazing, right? So, and also there are 3 other books of Gary's which are great books, and there is a very, very interesting book. So based on real life examples, Gary has authored that book. It's called What the Heck is Leadership and Why Should I Care? Right? So do not judge a book by its cover, right? Just because you see a cat's picture, but it's a great book where you will find some interesting stories where the names have been changed, but you can gain immense knowledge. So if you read all 4 of Gary's books, you will gain, what can I say? You will gain immense knowledge. It's like you hit a jackpot. And there is about HR, and Gary talks about the medical industry and leadership, transparency, feedback. So there are many, many interesting things you can gain on that. You can gain knowledge on that. And yeah, so Gary, any final message you want to give our viewers and the listeners?
Yeah, I'll do a challenge.
Yeah.
And you and I, we talk about learning and how important it is, and it's almost, you can't lead without learning. I mean, it's you can't do it. Here's my challenge. If you're in management and you want to develop how you lead, what I suggest doing is start by going to the people that work for you and tell them, I'm going to learn. I'm going to be a learner. I want you to know I'm trying to learn how I can improve on leading. So I'm going to be doing some things that to try to improve on how I lead. So if I behave differently, if I act more positively, then that's why. And if you try things like the feed forward concept, or specific practices like I write about, let them know, let the people around you know, hey, I'm trying this out. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm going to give it a shot, and then ask for feedback on how you're doing. But let people know that you're authentically trying to become better at leadership. And I don't use the word leader. It's really about the behaviors. and the practices. And practices are a collection of behaviors. It's style. When you hear the term leadership style, it's really a collection of behaviors that are put together to accomplish something like coaching or I like a gosh. I'm not going to bring it up, but anyway, there's that's why I recommend doing. It's don't try to develop leadership on your own. Let people know that you're a learner and you want to develop your leadership.
Correct.
And ask for help.
Absolutely.
From people that work for you, even especially people that work for you. You know, I want you to help. I'll let you know how you can help as I learn some of these concepts.
Definitely. So the best anti-aging medicine is lifelong learning. Also, there are some valuable resources, and you get some free resources as well on Gary's website. That is www.garyadepaul.com. So you can find the link, which will be put below our podcast. So you can find some valuable information on that.
Yeah, look at the books. Look up where the menu that says books, and go to 9 practices, and you can download the 13 traditional assumptions that get you leadership assumptions that get you in trouble. You can download the principles. You can download the practices. You can download the forward to the first edition. I don't have it much on the second edition in there, but there's a lot of stuff, and you can, and the assessment you can download as well as an example of what it would look like if someone filled it out.
Definitely. So, Gary, thank you very much for taking time and doing this podcast with us.
Thank you as well. I'm my lot of gratitude for you doing this for me. I've greatly enjoyed it, and I enjoyed talking with you as well.
Likewise. So it's such an honor.